Patrick, it's good to have you back on the show. I think everybody has been really interested in the information that you've been bringing forward about Epstein and government contracts. Historic stuff afoot with Trump and Putin riding a Cadillac in Alaska. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Jason? Thanks for having me back. Yeah, it's the whole the Alaska Accords are pretty they've been taking up a lot of my time. Just in the spaces and talking about it and people inviting me to talk about it and
Hmm.
writing about it and people asking me about it and clients asking me about it, what's going to do for government contracting. So it's been a very chaotic week in the US government, that's for sure.
Sure, but that sounds like good chaos. You're in demand. People want to
Yeah.
hear from you as the founder of Single Company, and viewers can follow you on X at Single Company with an X. So you now have some new information for us pertaining to DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Program, and Jeffrey Epstein's, I don't know if we would call it a real estate empire, but he certainly had some pretty impressive real estate holdings. Actually, today's thumbnail is in fact based on Jeffrey Epstein's actual former home in Miami. And then I've got a little DARPA X-plane up there in the corner, which I guess is kind of a vertical takeoff and landing jet that combines drone, multi-rotor technology. What are we going to be talking about today, Patrick?
Well, just that, Jason. So I didn't really pay much attention to where he lived until we started talking about Jeffrey Epstein's proximity to Sandia National Laboratories in Los Alamos. Um, and what I found was uh, all of this contract data, where at its peak, especially near West Palm Beach, um, you had all of these DARPA projects going on that were being contracted out to these massive, massive companies, Raytheon, Lockheed, Pratt and Whitney, which is an aerospace company, and also something that I didn't really take too much stock in was his home in Columbus, Ohio. It was built in 1991 by Les Wexner, and Jeffrey Epstein stayed in the guest house
Huh.
up until 1998.
Well, he's like the
Yeah.
Kato Kalin over there.
And the funny thing is, so if anybody has paid attention to any ufology, any of the conspiratorial circles, they have heard about this location called Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Now, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is essentially the Area 51 or the S4 east of the Mississippi. Um, so Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is the home to Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and Raytheon Phantom Works. It's just outside of Dayton, Ohio, but it is in very close proximity to a town called New Dublin, where Les Wexner and Jeffrey Epstein's shared residence was in Ohio. Now, what I found was the peak of their contracts, especially for DARPA projects, which I'll send you a screenshot of one of the most insane contracts I've ever found, um, which I'll include in part five. But um, his West Palm Beach home, his Zorro Ranch home in New Mexico, his shared home in New Dublin, Ohio, and also his Upper East Side Manhattan home. All four of these things have serious, serious implications as they were 30 minutes or less from the most top secret projects, whether it's national security, whether it's defense, whether it's scientific research. He he positioned himself through real estate, through shaking hands and making deals, I guess, with the likes of Les Wexner. He positioned himself in these epicenters of the most fringe and top secret sciences that our US government was working on and is still working on today. Um, the most interesting one, which I know a lot of people won't take much stock in this, but the 33 Thomas building in Manhattan.
Oh,
Now,
yeah. No,
yep.
people will take stock in that. I've been by that building. It's very crazy.
Yeah, it is.
And
So
notice the
for
address, Patrick, 33.
33,
Why did they do that?
Jason, you have opened my eyes, enlightened me, if you will, to the numerology
No,
behind.
let me just
Um,
correct you. It's
yeah.
not numerology. I don't want people
Okay.
to think that we're getting into numerology, which some people
Okay.
equate to witchcraft. I think it's a coded message. They just use
Ah.
that
Okay.
number to let people in the know understand that this is one of our things.
Okay. Yeah. Well, whatever it is, you have um you have put me on to this to paying attention to the numbers because I that's the
Steganography.
steganographer,
Steganography.
a
Hidden
steganography.
messages, hidden in plain sight. But I agree with you. This is a weird building.
Yeah, and it's completely windowless. It was built in the 1970s, late 70s, early 80s, I believe. But the weirdest thing about this building is that AT&T is the maintainer and owns
Right.
the operational contract since the 1980s, just like Sandia National
Oh,
Laboratories.
right. Wow.
So these operational contracts, these massive, massive, massive IDIQs, which are indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, which is a contract
Ooh.
vehicle used mostly by multi-billion dollar companies. Where, to put it in layman's terms, because I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with the contract jargon, but essentially the government says, hey, you're going to do this contract for 5 years, and whatever tools, parts, materials, labor, or space that you need, we are going to keep throwing money at it.
Wow.
And you will get an automatic renewal if we are satisfied with your performance after 5 years. And you are going to have all the money at your disposal to get any sort of subcontractors that you need. Um, Now, the 33 Thomas building in New York, 5 minutes from Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan home. Um, it is probably one of the most lucrative spy hubs for the National Security Agency. Now, what would Jeffrey Epstein, why would he have a
Right.
vested interest in spying on other people? Uh, which is the question that I actually got from some dissenting voice on X, um, trying to discredit the story. So, um, yeah, it's crazy. So we have AT&T, we have DARPA involved, and all of these projects that have happened near his properties, whether New Mexico, Palm Beach, Manhattan, or Ohio, all have to do with these top secret fringe sciences. And he positioned himself to be right there in these nodes of these fringe sciences. And the New York Times, as as back and forth as I go with them as far as their credibility, um, they have documented Jeffrey Epstein's verbal and on the record interest in things like AI, eugenics, CRISPR genetics, UFOs, which is very well documented at Zora Ranch. And we talked about that a little bit last episode. Um, so yeah, and Jason, the thing that I am kind of venturing into, and just something that I'm entertaining, a theory, is that Jeffrey Epstein and UFOs, um, the two are not mutually exclusive. I think that there is a lot of overlap between the US government and large defense contractors and DARPA, um, and Arrow and all these different programs with UFOs. I think there is tons and decades of overlap between those programs and Jeffrey Epstein's operation.
Did you happen to see Anna Paulina Luna was on with Joe Rogan a day or two ago talking about, she's investigating UFOs and all that. I don't know. Eric Weinstein was kind of poo-pooing what she was saying, and also seeing photos of stuff. I mean, to some extent, Congress is really an extension of the public, but it was interesting that they were having this conversation about, who controls these programs, if it's not Congress or the president. And you said you had your own kind of personal observations of things when living on an aircraft carrier. So it's certainly mysterious. We've heard all these stories of like hidden caverns and everything and hieroglyphics of helicopters and all that. It's certainly a mystery.
And not trying to break OPSEC here too much, but I live in Ana Paulina Luna's district. There's a lot of work around here that could be done. She actually goes to my gym. I never see her there because she's actually working. So I'll give her credit. She's a
Luna.
She's a working congresswoman, and I will give her some credit that her heart is definitely in the right place. People like her, Tim Burchett of Tennessee, they have been trailblazers like the world has never seen, like the U.S. government has never seen, for UFO disclosure and the Epstein disclosure.
And JFK. And I'll tell you this, I've met her in her office and spoken with her. She seems like a sincere person. I mean, when you meet somebody and they just seem flippant or disinterested or whatever, I like Ana Paulina Luna, and I think she does mean to do the right thing. But again, I think that to some extent, these are super top secret programs. They're going to try to fool her to fool us by extension, aren't they?
Exactly. That was exactly my issue with what she said on Joe Rogan. And it's not, my anger isn't really towards her, even though I did rant a little bit about the potholes in St. Petersburg, and I kind of went off the rails there. But I cooled
really
down.
Blowing the OPSEC right there.
But I think it was, what the intel community calls passage material, which a lot of people have probably heard this term, especially you, Jason. For those of you who don't know, passage material is a counterintelligence information, if you will, that is planted false information given to somebody that they know is going to espouse everything that was told to them when they know it's a lie. And I think Ana Paulina Luna, whether she got briefed in a skiff or whether she was briefed by, classified whistleblowers, I think that she truly believes what she was told, what she saw, and what was documented and shown to her. But I do think that she was given a lot of passage material. And I'll go a step further as far as the secrecy. Everybody's always wondering and pointing fingers about who owns the secrets. Obviously, we know, compartmentalization within the government, but also compartmentalization amongst these corporations like Lockheed Martin, like Raytheon, like Booz Allen Hamilton, who does all the NSA contracts, like Palantir, Anduril. I mean, any of these large defense contractors, Deloitte, that's a really big one that nobody talks about, is they have lawyers who worked for CIA. They have special agents who worked for NSA, FBI. They have retired case officers and analysts, and also heads of state and directors, for the ODNI, CIA, State Department. They are an intelligence apparatus without oversight. Because everybody that works in these companies have that background, and now they don't have to abide by the Geneva Conventions. They respond to a corporate chain of command instead of a governmental.
It's almost fascism in that regard, isn't it? Because we have all these corporate entities that have so much control over government information and policy. Before we go on too much more with that, I just wanted to ask you one thing, because I share your skepticism with some of the things that Ana Paulina Luna was saying, Ana Paulina Luna, and I agree with you. It's probably people giving her bad info to pass on. But when she spoke about this concept of interdimensional beings, it struck me that resonates with what Enrico Fermi used to talk about. So, I mean, again, there's so many layers to these onions where who knows what's true, right?
Yeah. And are you familiar with Arthur C. Clarke, Jason,
A
science
little bit.
fiction writer?
I'm aware of him. Yeah.
So he had probably in my opinion, the most profound quote as it pertains to existentialism. Arthur C. Clarke wrote, "There are two possibilities that exist in our universe. Either we are completely alone or we are not at all, and both are equally terrifying." Um, I, I'm somewhere in the middle in his quote. I don't know what to believe. Um, like I've told you about my uncle, the physicist. He debunks UFOs viciously. He debunks extraterrestrial life viciously.
Hmm.
But a theory that he does give credence to is the interdimensional,
Ah,
multiverse.
wow.
Yeah.
So he likes
Um,
Doctor Strange, I bet.
yeah. Yeah. Um, which
But
I'm starting
but
to. Yeah.
we're joking about it now, but I think, have spoken in the past about how Marvel Comics was tied in with L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons, and Iron Man was supposed to be Jack Parsons. So, Doctor Strange and this concept of interdimensional, here it is again.
Yeah. And I am giving a lot of credence to that theory. But then when I hear Anna Polina Luna say it, I'm like, well, they wouldn't give her the true story. I feel like she's a very great lady from the people I've talked to at my gym and others and you. Very nice lady. But why would they give her any any trace of what the truth is?
I'll tell you this. One technique that I've observed, I agree with what you're saying, but I invite you to also entertain this. There seems to be a tactic where when they want to apply disinformation, or what was the term that you just used a minute ago?
Oh, passage material.
Passage material. They, when it's super sensitive, they want to get right up to it and then muddy the waters. So if it's true that there is some element of interdimensionality, I mean, there's a way that David Icke puts this that I find very interesting. You're aware of, within the visible spectrum of light, you've got Roy G. Biv, and then you've got ultraviolet and infrared and all that. And, human vision can detect the visible spectrum, but we just can't see infrared light at all. And if you
Mm,
have a digital camera, it can see infrared. So you could be in a room that everything is completely dark, and then you flood it with infrared light and the camera sees everything and you see nothing. So if there's something happening at a frequency or a wavelength, whatever the proper term is, that you can't detect, it exists in some dimension or something like that beyond your detection. It could be all around us and you just have no idea it's there.
yeah, I completely agree. And it's just there's so much noise, and it's so I feel like I am, I have a machete and I'm trying to cut through a jungle, and just I'm not seeing any end. And I just have branches and trees and everything getting in my way, and you just have to keep cutting down and cutting down. And um, yeah, what I want to know is who is doing, the disinformation campaigns. I look at people who are credible in that sphere, and I'm not trying to slander him at all. I've never met the guy. He's obviously very intelligent, but Hal Puthoff, Dr. Hal Puthoff, he's had ties to Scientology. So going back to L. Ron Hubbard,
Yeah.
he's worked on these top secret programs since the 1970s. You also have the physicist Eric Davis.
Well, hang on a
You
second. because this guy Hal Puthoff, I actually never heard of him until the Joe Rogan and Anna Paulina Luna conversation. And the first thing that strikes me is I don't know this guy. I'm not criticizing him or endorsing him. But what the hell kind of name is Put Off? Is he trying to put you off the story? Like, what is that? It's so obvious. So like you were saying, would they give Anna Paulina Luna this information? If this is not this guy's real name, and I'm not suggesting that it isn't, but it becomes so ridiculous in and of itself that it almost makes you say like, oh, Jason's being crazy. They wouldn't give the guy the fake name Put Off if he is there to put you off the story, just like they wouldn't name Ed Batowski Ed Butowski if they're trying to get you to not pay attention to Seth Rich and he's the guy in charge of that. But yet at some point, I don't know, it kind of seems like maybe.
Yeah, and he worked on the remote viewing program. Um, and that's where his ties to Scientology really came into question. Um,
Hmm.
because
Uh-huh.
Scientology, they infiltrated that entire program. Um, I mean, sorry, I don't want to go down another
Well,
rabbit
no, that's
hole
a
here.
whole other rabbit
But
hole. They broke into an FBI office at one point,
yeah,
and they did a lot of crazy stuff. And we've spoken about how they were, hanging out on a boat and everything. But let me just take you back for a second because we're going to get into all of this in detail when we do our sponsor exclusive segment. And it's coming up right after this. People who are subscribed to you, Patrick, on Substack at substack.com/at single company are going to be able to join us for that. Of course, Crowdsource the Truth sponsors on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com will also join us. But, there's a lot of interesting stuff about these different properties that Jeffrey Epstein has. And, I hadn't thought about that 33 Thomas Street when you first mentioned it. There's a lot of interesting stuff around Miami as well. Have you ever heard of this guy, Carl Fisher, and how they built up all these islands around Florida over there when they first started, inhabiting Florida, turning it from a swamp into orange groves? There's a lot of Army Corps of Engineer projects. There's a whole submarine base over there by Star Island. It's very curious.
is that uh, is that the guy that built the is that the guy that built the sculpture or the that massive like garden Stonehenge thing in Miami that people were saying like there's paranormal experiences there and
Oh, I don't
there's
know.
okay
Maybe. I mean,
that's
he's a
yeah.
big developer of Florida. Carl Fisher, he was sort of like the Elon Musk of his time. He invented these type of headlights that were here. Carl G. Fisher. This is the guy. He was an American entrepreneur in the automotive industry. He was into highway construction and real estate development.
Hmm.
Became involved in bicycle racing, and he created the Indianapolis 500, I think, the Motor Speedway, the Lincoln
Wow.
Highway. Here it says he it was a major influence on Lieutenant Colonel Dwight D. Eisenhower years later in championing the interstate highway system. So think about that.
Hmm.
These guys that were building highways back in the day, this is like going into space now. And, you and I have spoken about certain questions around people like Elon Musk and Palmer Luckey. We always seem to have these like, billionaire genius guys who show up. And then there's all these projects that advance the United States. Now you and I today are talking about this corporate structure that seems almost pseudo-fascistic, particularly if they're controlling secrets about technology, anti-gravity technology, things that could change the world. Why are these companies allowed to keep that kind of technology and benefit from it? And who's becoming billionaires from that, keeping you and I away from, perpetual energy and all that? They talk about how the FBI went in there to the New Yorker hotel where Nikola Tesla was trying to broadcast electricity to everybody. They kept all his stuff.
Yeah, and I think it is I think it's synergistic business practices tied in with the national security apparatus and also the military industrial complex, as well as the intelligence apparatus of the United States. Um, and the reason why I use the term synergistic is because they are all helping each other. So whether it's DIA, NSA, CIA, NRO, or National Geospatial, just some of the intelligence agencies in the United States, um, they are the ones who have the oversight and are extremely compartmentalized. They are the clients, if you will. And your Lockheed Martin, your Raytheon, your AT&T, your General Electric, and AT&T.
They're
There
the
you have,
vendors.
yeah, and they're the vendors performing this contract. Which, uh, going back to what I do, um, those contracts I don't really have any data for because they are classified
Right.
and locked up and sealed up. And
Well, let me just pause you right there because we do have to
go for
break
it.
here. We're going to go to the sponsor exclusive segment. There's a lot more for us to discuss. I want to talk to you also about the Invention Secrecy Act and certain other things that might surround some of these technologies. So thanks for watching, everybody. Stay with us. We'll be back in just 5 minutes with the sponsor exclusive segment. If you're interested in what we've been talking about, don't miss this. You're going to really enjoy it. Thanks for watching.